Welcome to On the Chain with Jeff and Chip.
All right, welcome to On the Chain Roundtable. This is Jeff, co-host Chip, and today we've got Freecoiner and XRP Carolina with us. Welcome to the show, both of you guys. And Freecoiner has been a YouTuber since 2018, back maybe around June timeframe. So it's been a little while. Hey, Freecoiner, how's it going?
Going well. How's it going with you guys?
We're doing awesome. Love to hear, as we get started here, love to hear just a little bit of a background on you. We haven't really engaged a ton like this, with you,
Right.
whether even on Twitter or on YouTube like this, but, watched your YouTube videos for quite a while. So it's awesome to get to meet you in person like this.
Yes, absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys inviting me on.
Yeah, it's good to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And then we've also got XRP Carolina here, and XRP Carolina is actually putting together a new channel for On the Chain and is going to be releasing some content here pretty soon. We're looking forward to that. What's going on, XRP Carolina?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thank you for having me on this morning. Appreciate it.
We're glad to have you here. So let's go back to Freecoiner. Just give us a little bit of a background on you. How you started making YouTube videos, why you got into it, and how you first got engaged with the digital asset.
Well, okay, so that's this is a story. So I started in crypto in I think it was March of 2017. A friend of mine had come to my house, had just bought my house, and invited people over. So he came out and he started talking about Bitcoin. Now I had already heard about Bitcoin in 2012 because I was gonna start mining, but I never did do it. And when he told me about it, there was also what is it, multi-level marketing type of thing going on at the time. So anyway, in like a day, I set up my Coinbase account, attached my bank account, and did all this stuff, funded the account, and got involved with this platform, which obviously it turned out to be nothing. I mean, honestly, I just lost money in it, and that just kind of that kind of led the way of me losing more and more money, because the one thing I didn't do was I didn't do any research. I didn't go in to really understand what this was all about, why it's important, and how to get profits. Really, just taking it here and investing right, all that stuff. So as we move forward now, I think it was in April of 2017 as well. That was the first time I actually bought XRP. So at that time, it was 0.6 of a cent. I spent $15. I got 2,500 coins, but wow. I didn't know what I had. I just didn't know. And I ended up selling it at around 20 cents, which I made a nice profit, nothing, spectacular. But as far as the Bitcoin side went, I just jumped from one multi-level platform to another, and everything was a scam, everything, right? So going all the way to the bull run, and then, after, I just realized that this is a dangerous space financially. You can really lose your shirt, right? We got into 2018. I started, after everything happened with, from that period, I decided, you know what, let me do some research so I can really understand this. And upon doing research, I came to XRP, and it just made the most sense. So I started getting, just completely getting involved with that. I started selling my Bitcoin, buying XRP. And then upon realizing all the scams that were still going on, I just decided, hey, you know what, let me go ahead and start doing videos, because I was watching Alex Cobb, CKJ, DAI, all these guys that were really putting out some good content. And, I just wanted to add my story and really help people to stay, focused and stay away from the scams that were out there. That was really my main focus. I just wanted to help people steer away from losing their crypto, losing their funds in this space. So that's kind of my story.
I was going to ask you too, back in those days when, because I spent a lot of time really in jungle and CKJ as well. And back in the day, were you using Freecoiner? Was that your YouTube name as well, or is that something that you invented for just doing the YouTube videos? Like, what were you using
before that? Yeah, when I started my YouTube channel, that's when I came up with the name Freecoiner. And the idea I had behind that was free mind, because I've always been more of a deep thinker and, looking behind the scenes and things. So free coiner, also the adage where we call people who are not in crypto no coiners. So I'm a free coiner.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You really put a lot of thought into that. I didn't put any thought into mine at all. Which was probably one of the issues that.
Oh man, right it is what it is. Your mind picks what fits best for you, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what were you using back in the day? Like when you were like frequenting those videos, doing the live streams, like, on CKJ and stuff like that, what were you using back then? Just like your real name, or are you just using like a different, something you set up on your YouTube channel?
Well, I have several YouTube channels. I had one that, so as far as YouTube, I started my very first YouTube channel in 2016 that I was doing on a regular basis. It was a car channel. So I bought a 2016 Camaro SS when the new body style came out. So I created a car YouTube channel. I was doing that for a while. Actually, I had gained quite a few subscribers, but during that time, I got really sick. I got the flu or something like that, and I stopped making content, and I just didn't pick it back up. So I had that one, and it's called DB71. So I had that one that I used, and then I had a couple of others that I don't use anymore. So that's how I interacted with the different live streams and things.
No, so it's just a natural evolution for you to get into it and to start doing, creating content and videos and whatnot. I wanted to shift the topic a little bit and get you guys' feedback on this. I saw a really interesting article this morning. There's been a lot of talk in this space, I guess, and I've seen this pretty much all over. Everyone's talking about Ripple, because they raised the Series C round. Where are they? A lot of people are speculating. Are they going to do an IPO? And I think the other thing is this article pointed to the fact that Ripple is now worth more than 93% of the NASDAQ stocks with their $10 billion valuation. Let me start with Carolina. Carolina, what do you think is going to happen with, what's your thought on this whole thing with, IPO, no IPO, what do you see happening, or what do you think some of the upcoming moves might be for Ripple?
Well, I see that with the Series C funding, they're getting in position to be able to do an IPO. I don't know if they are going to or not, but I can see it being set up in a way that they just getting in a position to be able to either acquire some companies, hopefully R3. But I just think that they're just getting in position to be able to, and it possibly could happen not too far down the line, hopefully. But yeah, if they do acquire R3, that would be wonderful. But yeah, I just see them getting in a strategic position to be able to do so.
Okay, Freecoiner, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you see Ripple doing?
Well, I don't know that they would. I think it would be a mistake if they IPO'd, because they lose a lot of control. And I think being in a strong position is really more just like did I lose my video?
We just lost your video.
You just lost your video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
I don't know what happened there, but I think it's more that they are just getting themselves in a very strong position to essentially lead the space. That's the way I see it. I definitely agree with Carolina there, and but I think that I don't think necessarily they are trying to IPO. A lot of companies, make the right moves, or they do certain things to get in, the right position. But the smart thing, I think, in this case, the smart thing to do for the meantime, I mean, don't IPO. That's like that. That could be the death nail.
Jeff, what do you think about
Yeah,
that? Like, what are your thoughts?
that's a great thought process, because when you get into the IPO stage, typically corporations are looking for raising funds, because now you're going through distribution. You're selling off shares of stock in return, obviously, for money. The question is then, if there is conversation about Ripple going IPO, do they need the funding, which they, at this stage, they don't. But then secondly, do they want to transition from a private company to a publicly traded company, which brings, a lot of other, a potential issue. So we can look at it from that perspective. But so I really think, if you want to look on the other side of it, though, for those that might be in favor of an IPO or speculate into an IPO, maybe that is what would also, further their objectives of more mainstream adoption, across the platform. Do the banks, or would banks even want to work with a privately held company, even though they, might not have full centralized control over everything? Do they want to be in that environment, or would a bank, globally speaking, want to be in an environment that they're working with an organization that's privately held? I think those are all the open, pending questions. But to me, I do lean on the side of there's no need at this point for an IPO, and I don't see the benefit at this point, at this stage of the game. At some point in the future, that might all change, but that's where I stand.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not necessarily not in the wheelhouse of IPO. They don't need to. They I think some of this money you raise because it looks good on the it looks good when you're trying to, if you need some liquid capital, like for an acquisition. So Carolina, I think you're onto something there as far as an acquisition is concerned. Because now the weird thing about the R3 thing, I'm kind of split on that. I don't know that I believe that there's something of real value, because when Ripple and R3 got into that spat, right? So their principal investor, that owns 10% of Ripple. I don't know how much he owns of R3, but which is Katao from SBI, kind of got upset and bought down and said, hey, come on, kids, let's figure this out. And then they kind of came together and they dropped these lawsuits. And R3's been spending an awful lot of time with raising money and dealing with this rather than building a product. And I'm not so sure. I do like it's more of a third party, because banks don't want to be on the hook with the risk. I get where they can just go ahead and use someone like an R3 because it mitigates the risk, because they're not personally doing it. They're off, sourcing that to somebody else. But I don't really know that even if there was an acquisition, even if they came together, they would still want to be separate companies. So I'm not sure there's a value there. Now, if R3 got in trouble, there's where I can see something like that making sense. Like if they continue to have issues with fundraising or moving the company forward. But I don't know if there's a lot of value there in them, going to that next step. I think, they keep on probably good terms, but I don't know about that. I think that acquisitions, like someone like Crypto Eddie, who's also a contributor here, she's put out some pretty nice videos too about speculating and looking at companies she thought would make a really good fit for sort of an acquisition and bring in talent. There's always that acqui-hire too. So you have a team. There was that one company out in San Francisco, the name escapes me, where they were basically renting stuff out. And so, Coinbase did an acqui-hire. They basically got the company, they brought the team in because the team was doing cool stuff. It just, they didn't really have a good use case, or, it wasn't creating adoption in that space there. So wondering if we could segue a little bit onto the next topic, which I'll let, Jeff go ahead and start us off with.
Oh, thanks, Chip.
So I like that. See how I did that?
Spot.
Boom.
Put me on the spot just like that.
Just like that, Jeff.
So I think a perfect segue, and Freecoiner, you brought this up, talking about Bitcoin. So we got to go there. Now there was something that recently came out, and this has been hitting mainstream. So I like seeing, mainstream media talking about digital asset. I like seeing them talking about Bitcoin. And I think this is interesting because one of the things they've alluded to is that Bitcoin has been the best investment for the past decade. All right. So they show that Bitcoin, and I haven't gone back to see if these numbers are 100% accurate, just based on what mainstream media is talking about, a 9,000,000% increase in the valuation of Bitcoin in the past decade. So that's huge, right? Those are big gains. Now the question is then, as we start seeing mainstream media talking about this, we want to see more mainstream adoption. And we'll talk later about the CEO of Coinbase, what he's speculating on for the 20s. But when do you guys see, given this big, huge growth of Bitcoin outperforming everything else in the market right now, where do we see institutional investors really gaining momentum in the crypto space? Let's start with that. Kind of dig into that a little bit, but we'll start with Freecoiner on that one. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so as far as I see there, I think the interest has been there for some years from institutional investors. Because if you think about it, I've been in the corporate world for, like I said, for 20 years. Those are like giant ships in the sea. They don't turn quickly, right? So anything that they do, it has to be pre-planned even before that, right? Because they want to make sure they're moving in the right direction. Most of these companies are publicly offered, so they can't just, do whatever they want to do. So I think the interest has been there, and now that we have governmental, interest and possibly some type of regulation coming out at some point. I do believe that was really the only thing, these companies were waiting on. I think now they're starting to enter the space. A lot of this stuff we're not going to see because they're not going to make that public, right? They don't have to at this point. And once the money starts to flow, we'll start seeing that. But I think it's already happening personally. I think now in this new decade, we're going to see huge adoption, and I think it's going to run up really quickly in this first year, and probably level off towards the middle of the decade. But there's still a lot to be done.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. Yeah, I think that we're just getting started. There was a lot going in for this the first 10 years getting into the space. The next 10 years, we're definitely going to see a lot more focus on adoption, more awareness, and all of that. And what you're bringing up regarding these big institutions, they do move slowly. So so there should not be this big expectation of they're going to dive right into the deep end, and whatever happens, which also then, as a follow-up to that, and then we'll get some feedback from Carolina on this, but what do you think on take that same thought process on the big institutions? The same thing then goes with the adoption of the Ripple net platform, ODL, XRP, and all of that when it comes to banks.
So, man, I'm more of the thinking kind of conspiratorial on that aspect. And the reason I say that is because of what we're seeing right now, right? Now, I've mentioned this before in my videos, but we don't have like 3 times the number of coins in circulation right now since 2017, 2018, since the bull run, right? Yet we are many times lower than the all-time high. So, and the volume is, everything is a magnitude higher now than it was back then. So how is it that we're so much lower, right? It really kind of boggles the mind. Now, I personally believe there are a lot of banks already involved. And now we're having all these, and again, this is really kind of conspiratorial. So please forgive me, but I have to go here. we're having all of these glitches, guys, right? You know, we're having all of these glitches that are happening where you see XRP at, you know, these astronomical prices, yet we're, you know, we're at 15 cents and we have all of this, you know, speculation that's actually happening, but we're not seeing it reflected in the price. Now, just to get to it, I think banks are already involved. Now, can they hold it? No. Is it beyond really testing? I think the majority of what's happening right now is still in the testing phase. But I think there's more adoption that has already happened than we're being told about. Okay, now that's just the way I'm seeing it. And obviously I could be wrong, but yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, that's good. XRP Carolina, what are your thoughts? You know, if we're gonna, you know, dig a little bit more into Ripple, you know, and XRP and banks actually holding XRP, you know, taking off of that momentum. Do you believe that the lack of regulatory clarity in the United States is actually holding back banks from getting more actively involved with ODL, with XRP, going, you know, full solution, you know, or are they, you know, operating in the back end? You know, are they testing? You know, what are your thoughts? You know, where do they stand? I know it's all speculation, but, you know.
Well, I do think that a lot more is going on in the background that, excuse me, that they're not letting us know about. It's just weird that all these other countries are adopting and making regulations for crypto as quickly as they are, and the United States is like, you know, we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs. I don't believe that's the case. I do believe that they are doing more in the background and just not letting us know about it. And then eventually they're just going to drop it all on us at one time. But because it looks like that the United States is not doing anything at the moment, yes, it's pushing a lot of companies over, you know, in more friendly crypto areas or countries, and we're losing, you know, potential revenue from the market itself because the fact that it's appearing that the United States is not doing anything but dragging their feet on regulating regulations and everything. So I do agree, Mr. Freecoiner, on that I do believe a lot of things are going on in the background that they're just not letting us know about.
Yeah, I like that. Now, you know, one of my big concerns is exactly that, you know, that the U.S. is falling behind. You know, there's too much focus politically in this country on the wrong things. You know, and you know, you have a large percentage of Congress that's just wasting tax dollars, you know, going after phantoms and creating, you know, political fallacy, you know, when they should be focusing on, you know, bettering the economy of this country. And one of those has to do with, you know, regulating digital asset. You know, we had this huge opportunity that was presented in front of Congress with Facebook, you know, presenting Libra, you know, which is just like, boom, it just blew everything up. And all of a sudden everyone's talking about digital asset. But now, where did that lead us? Because the Token Taxonomy Act is dead in the water. You know, there was another one, I forget what it was called. It was, we talked about it a week or so ago, the cryptocurrency normalcy, whatever. It's DOA. It's not even going to hit the floor of Congress. You know, it's just a proposal at this point. You know, and all these other countries around the world are actually discussing regulation. South Korea is talking about taxation. Right now, they don't have any income tax on trade of digital asset, a private income tax, but yet they're looking at the potential of taxation because they can see that there's a lot of money to be made on that side. And with taxation, you get clarity. And then you have countries like Germany, Portugal, Italy, and then you have small countries like Bermuda that are creating little sandboxes for digital asset, for blockchain technology. And then where's the U.S.? You know, the U.S. is completely hopeless at this point. Chip, you know, where do we go from here? You know, what in the world's going to happen
straight
in
into the toilet, Jeff?
when,
I'm sorry.
You know, it's horrible.
right into the toilet, man. I mean,
it's toilet.
Well, you know what funny thing about you said about that South Korea thing, you know, all of a sudden I heard the news like South Korea, they're not going to have taxes on crypto profits, and everyone's like, yay. And then and I saw this other similar news story where they came out and they said they're finding some exchange, $71 million. I don't remember the exact figure, but I was like, whoa, that's kind of a contrast, right? So what exchange can take that kind of a hit? And when you do stuff like that, all you're saying to, you know, in South Korea, when somebody gets hit with this fine, what you've just said is how fast can you leave South Korea, right? How quickly can you get all of your stuff out and move someplace else? And that's exactly what's happened in the US. You know, you had Circle, you had Polynex, you had you have them relocating to Bermuda, which is so friendly with cryptocurrencies and regulations, you know, parts of Eastern Europe. And what I see happening, you know, it's a shame what's happening here. I mean, you know, we're all located in the United States, and you know, we have viewers from all over, and a lot of times, you know, I think wherever you live, you have to be somewhat frustrated. If you're in Japan or if you're in Asia, I think you're somewhat feeling pretty good because you're really leading the way. You know, what Japan has been doing and the inroads that they've been making, and they've really kind of always been sort of a step ahead. You know, they have all these different ways to pay. And what do we have here? You know, we have Apple Pay, we have Google Pay, Samsung Pay. And 90% of the time, that, you know, even the gas station by me, there's like 2 of them, right? And this is where my card always gets hacked at least once or twice a year. And I got to call my bank, cancel the card. This is becoming a hassle. It's like every 3 to 6 months, my card gets, but meanwhile, the one that I suspect, they've got the Apple Pay and the Google Pay there, but they don't let you use it. I go in there, the guy's like, oh, we don't have it hooked up. I'm like, I know, but would be nice for your customers because they would avoid having to be hammered, you know, going in there. And so I don't know, you guys, I mean, I love the idea of, you know, what my younger daughter said to me, you know what I like about, she says, I hear you talk about crypto and this cross-border, how fast you can send it. She goes, but you know, Pop, you can send me, you know, you can send me Apple Pay, you can text it to me and I can use it right away. She goes, oh, that's like instant. Well, what she probably doesn't realize is the settlement's not instant. You know, there's still something happening on the back side of what's going on. And I think that's where, you know, we probably go into this next phase of discussions. I mean, the regulation, that's another year plus off. We're not getting there anytime soon. You know, executive order, president signing stuff. I don't like executive orders myself. It's like every president comes in, signs executive orders, a new president comes in and cancels them all. You're not making, and all of that is to make up for the deficiency of how horrible Congress is because they can't do anything, right? Yeah. But they can party though. They always go to these awesome parties and hang out and get in front of TV cameras and, you know, and they you know, spout off their whatever, right? But none of it has to do with any of us. I mean, what do we get out of it? You know, we've been screaming about crypto, you know, about regulation. I'm wondering when we go into this next decade, you know, the big talk is about Swift and, you know, Freecoiner. When you think about Swift, you know, it's an old system. They kind of monopolize the space. You know, they are the leaders. And if you're in the Swift banking system, you know, you can really be part of, if you're in that system, the U.S. can block you, right? So if you're doing something nefarious or the U.S. doesn't like, they can go ahead and cut you down, you know, below the legs. There was something that came out, a report that came out recently that talked about, I don't know if you guys saw this, but talked about the fact that these pseudo banks were setting up in locations and being part of the network, saying they were banks, but they weren't really, you know, operating under banking licenses. And they were getting these Swift codes. So they were kind of manipulating the system. So it was the first big report that came out that showed you that there is a problem with the system itself. So Freecoiner, where do you see Swift and their place with competitors like Ripple coming onto the scene? Where do you see what's going to happen to them over the next couple of years?
So as far as the Swift thing goes, you know, before I go into that, let me say this, something that really really kind of gave me an idea of what we're dealing with as far as the regulation, as far as everything that's happening. Okay, for the in-place systems that have been in there for a long time, guys. I mean, you guys hit it right on the head, I think, because they're not going anywhere now. What happened? What I was looking at was something about medication. Okay, and people that currently use medication, they're like the prices in the U.S. are astronomically high. but they can go right down to Mexico or Canada and get the, get the same medication like 5 times cheaper, right? Now, Donald Trump himself, the president, so there was a bill introduced, and it's, if it makes it up to his desk, he said that he would veto it. Why is that? Okay, so going into SWIFT, these are in place systems. We're talking about the oligarchy. We're talking about the good old boys that are there, and they are, patting each other on the back. They're helping line each other's pockets. I mean, I totally agree. The SWIFT, I'm going to tell you something. SWIFT, and this is something I said a long time ago. SWIFT is not going anywhere. SWIFT has been there for years and years and years. I mean, they've been there since the 70s. So, and they have the money, they have the connections. Is Ripple going to come in and oust SWIFT? No. I think what's happening right now is the reason why we're not getting the regulation, the reason why we're seeing the IRS tax us like stupid, just some of the stupidest rules that are coming out, is because they're trying to figure out the best way to, essentially steal from us. To be honest with you, they're trying to keep the control, and they want to just have the best way to keep things, or basically keep status quo. Because look at what we deal with. If you look at what happens in Europe as far as the taxes, they get taxed essentially 50% of their wages, but that's essentially, that's pretty much it. They get free healthcare, things like that. But when you look at it here, it doesn't, right off the bat, it doesn't seem that high, but it's really crazy high. Just for example, if you were to win the lottery, do you know you could actually end up getting taxed up to 50%? You're going to lose the majority of your money just through taxes, So I think what the problem is like I said, we just have the in-place systems. We have the people that have been there and making money, and they're just trying to make sure that they keep status quo. That's what I think. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a great point. And whether it's SWIFT, whether it's the central banks, whether it's government, these guys have been at it for eons, just getting wealthy off of what, and it was interesting. You talk about the central bankers, and they're even the central bankers with their golden parachutes and the amount of money that they move around, and our politicians, how they take advantage of the system. XRP Carolina, what do you think about that? I agree with what Freecoiner is saying on that, but what do you think about that, the manipulation of the system, and trying to maintain the status quo?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Freecoiner there that SWIFT is not going anywhere. They're bank owned, I believe. Yeah, so got big banks involved with them. If anything, it's going to be, I believe, Ripple it's going to be like a slow integration with SWIFT. They're not going to take over SWIFT because they're been around for decades, and it's just all, I believe it's just all manipulated to favor the ones who already have the control. They don't want to release the control. Like Mr. Freecoiner was saying with the taxes, it's ridiculous that you're getting taxed 50% of, say, lottery winnings or in crypto, digital assets. You're going to be taxed 50% of that. That's just a form of control, I believe, manipulation and control. And hopefully within this decade, with regulations do play out, and that it'll get better as far as just the control that they have on us right now. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. And the extension of this control. You look at, to me, you look at our politicians. You get into Congress, and those guys can't be held legally responsible for insider trading, meaning that they can participate in insider trading. Now, if any of us get information from a corporation, we trade on it and make $1 million, guess where you're going?
Yeah.
You're not going to Congress, but these congressional representatives sit up there, lie to us, get voted in, get millions of dollars to get re-voted in, and they sit up there in Washington. Many of them rarely come home to their own districts. They come home to their own districts and they parade around like we should be bowing at their feet. And yet they're sitting up in Washington, taking advantage of the system, not paying their taxes, not going to jail for not paying their taxes, taking advantage of insider trading, making millions of dollars. And many of them will be sitting up there for their entire careers and walk away, with millions and millions of dollars in the bank, and we don't have to go that far, regardless of, what side of the fence someone sits politically when it came to Obama. But I think, he's a perfect example because if you look at his economics, when he went into office, he wasn't worth $135 million. Right. He was barely making a couple $100,000 between him and Michelle Obama. As they led up to their campaign, all of a sudden he started getting book deals because that's how they move money over to you. Now all of a sudden he had a couple $1 million in the bank. Then he gets into office. He gets paid $400 and whatever $1,000 per year. He's there for 8 years. So if he doesn't spend $1 of it, okay, he gets to save after taxes, whatever. Let's say he's putting $300,000 away every single year, doesn't spend $1 of it, 8 years. So he's going to walk away with a couple bucks in his pocket, but now he's got $135 million in the bank. He's getting, tons and tons of book deals. And the latest book deal, from what I heard, he got $60 million for it for one book. And there's not an author on the planet that's been paid $60 million for the book. And my point isn't whether or not his content is valuable or not valuable. My point is that that's the corruption that's inherent in the system. I look at him because he's a national figure. It's easy to point it out. Now, if you go down to the lower levels, you go into Congress, you see the exact same thing time after time after time. And these are the guys that are now telling us, whether or not, we could be, we should be, valuably investing in digital asset. And the reason why I say that is because they're the ones that should be responsible to us and acting to our demands, because they're the ones representing us in Congress, yet they're dragging their feet. And any of this guidance or recommendation from the IRS or the SEC is based on antiquated laws. We're talking about laws from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s that aren't even relevant to today at all. And then the same thing goes with SWIFT. So it's amazing, the control from the central bank level. 10,000 banks, I don't know, whatever number of banks are involved in SWIFT, you're 100% spot on. Those guys own SWIFT, and and it's amazing to me, that there's that level of control. So with Ripple coming to the scene, you're right, that trying to take over an entity like SWIFT is like trying to get all of Congress out of government right now. And that's just the U.S. Forget about what's happening in the rest of the world. What do you guys think?
Well, I will say this, Jeff. Let me just jump in really quick. I will say this, here's something that banks like. Banks love to make money. They really are into this whole profit thing, making money, doing well. And when I look at what a bank does, right? So you're right about the whole SWIFT thing. But if it costs a couple of drops, if it costs pennies to be able to move $10 million from, let's say, Dallas, Texas over to, London, right? Whatever it may be. If you can move it very quick and efficient and get instant settlement. Okay, so two things banks don't like doing. They don't like having to fund accounts. They don't like this whole nostro vostro. That's not going away anytime. But the idea that they don't have to fund it, this was really the biggest takeaway for MoneyGram, right? MoneyGram doesn't have to have money sitting all over for settlement. And that's why, you have the CEO, yelling at Ripple saying, hey, Louis, we're not doing this fast enough, because they want to open the corridors, right? They want to make sure that these corridors get open so that they can leverage, Ripple and the on-demand liquidity. So the thing I look at banks is that banks are like, hey, yeah, we like this system, but over here on this shoulder is cheap, fast settlement. And over here is the illusion of fast settlement. you know, when Swift coming out saying, oh, we can do 12 seconds. We can do 12 seconds. You can write a memo in 12 seconds, but you're not actually still addressing the whole settlement problem. So it's all smoke and mirrors. And I think eventually what happens, see, I always feel like you don't want one person. And what happened when you have one person running the show, if you have monopolization of the space, you basically don't get innovation, right? If you only had one operating system to choose from, if you only had one phone to choose from, it doesn't, you know, you need that competition. You need other players in the space to constantly trying to one up each other. When Swift had the control, now before Ripple came along, were they wondering, geez, how can we make this cheaper and faster? Nope. Wasn't going through their heads. It wasn't an issue how they could figure out to make it better. So I think competition in the space, you know, we may see somebody else come out too that says, you know, someone along the lines of Ripple, but I think ultimately it makes the space better, Jeff. I mean, I think that that we end up getting you know, through the competition. You know, I like iPhone. You know, I don't know. Freecoiner, what are you playing? What space are you in on the whole phone thing?
Well, I'm Android, man, and
I knew
you know,
it.
yeah, IT, dude. You know, I just can't get with iPhone. I can't, man. I just.
But you are into privacy, right? And you are into so you're with a company that's backed totally by Google, which doesn't have any sort of like OAuth going into signing into a website and restricting data going to that provider. So that's where Google's at right now, and Google's the big. I understand what you're saying because I'm a tech guy too. I work in real estate tech. I worked in tech for the last 30 years, more so on the business and the front end side of it, and you know, building systems to run. I get where you're coming from, but why? When will it be that you see Google working to protect privacy? Because they're starting to look like, remember Microsoft was the evil one in the 90s. Microsoft was like Microsoft. And then Google became, you know, their mantra used to be "Don't be evil," right? Something like along the lines of that.
Yeah.
But do you see what Google's doing today? I mean, how do you feel about the way they're handling privacy? Do you think they're protecting privacy? Do you think that it's an issue? Do you see anything around that?
Well, yeah, of course. You know, but I mean, to be honest, how many companies are really protecting privacy? I mean, even some are saying, "Oh yeah, we're making sure your data is secure," but you know, honestly, it's really not happening. You
Well,
know, I
Apple's
mean,
one of those companies in a sense. They're just a smidge above the other companies, and the
right.
reason is because when I do sign into it, so you know, like that one time I bring up this example of when that terrorist, you know, was out of thing with San Bernardino, when the terrorists, they said we need to open this phone. Apple's like, we're not doing it. Like, but it's a terrorist. Like, hey man, if we cave on this, we cave on everything. Either we're going to be in protecting privacy of the individual or we're not. We're either going to be into selling somebody out or we're not. And that was a really tough position, the way the government looked at that, like, you know, trying to get real tough with them. But I appreciated the fact that, look, you got to be able to protect everyone's privacy. And I would hope that Google would follow suit with this OAuth sign in, because now I see it everywhere now. It says, hey, do you want to sign in with an email with Google or Apple? And Apple says, hey, do you want to be anonymous? I do. So I don't have to share my email. They don't know who I am. This is an ID number. Now, does that make it better? It doesn't make it better. It makes it a little better because, let's face it, they still have my data. They still know who I am, right? So to your point, Freecoiner, it's like, it's splitting hairs at this point, but I like the idea and the movement. I'd love to see Google and Samsung follow suit, where they start saying, hey, you know, you can use, I don't know, maybe it makes me feel better. Maybe it's just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get your point. I mean, me personally, I don't use a lot of the Google, you know, add-on fast kind of sign-in stuff. You know, I don't really deal with that too much. But you know, all in all, it is something that, you know, when you have like what you're talking about, it does make you feel better. But I mean, to be honest, man, we've all been co-opted already. You know, our data is not really secure. We know the NSA is spying on us. I mean, it's happening, right? So
that's not making me feel better.
No, I know, man, but that's, you know,
it's
just the truth, man. 9/11. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it, but that day that happened really opened the door to us losing all rights to our privacy. You know, I mean, okay, let me rephrase that. We didn't lose the rights to our privacy, but the criminal aspect of the system is able to do what the hell they want to do.
Exactly.
So that's the way
We
it comes.
gave
What it
them
comes
up,
down
right?
to.
The
We allowed
Patriot
them.
Act. It's like
Yeah,
We
but and
basically
that's
gave up.
you made a great point there, Jeff. We allow that, and that's something I wanted to even touch on, man, because everything that's happening, the fact that Congress can sit up there and do what they want to do, we cannot get them out of there. There's nothing we can do to actually make them leave. So what's happening right now is exactly what the founders of this country did not want to happen. We are at the mercy of those that actually serve us. We are now the servants. The people are now the servants. So this is totally backwards, man.
Yeah.
Well said, man. That's so spot on. I mean, the whole Patriot Act, when you give up freedom, and they always say, the trade-off, you got to give up bits of freedom to be safer. Anytime that you start hearing you're going to be safer as a result of giving up more freedom, you're headed down a really rocky path. That is the wrong way to go. And when that was going on, I was just shocked that nobody else was like, are you kidding me? Like, but we'll be safer. You're giving up your liberty. You're giving up freedom. Why would you do that? And, back when the Patriot Act was going, it was all under the mantra of like, we're going to be safe. It's going to be better. And then you see what happens as a result. You start getting FISA courts, these secret courts, why is there a secret court anyway? Why can't this be in the open? Why are you hiding behind doors to go like, we got to go to a secret court with a secret judge and do this? That opened the doors to all of that. And that started eroding liberties. And Jeff pointed out something really important before, which was the fact that if we do something like that now, and this is what I love about banks. Banks can go ahead and launder a crazy amount of money. They can break every rule in the book. They pay a fine, right? And what happens? Let's say you legitimately just make a misstep. Your intention was good. You make a misstep. People don't care about misstep. People don't care about well, I was thinking I was doing the right thing. Who cares? You're in jail. Now the politician says, well, I didn't know that I was doing that. Like, that's cool. You get the pass. You get the pass. You're fine. Not an issue there. But no, I think you bring up a good point. Freecoiner, you're right, spot on. As far as our liberties and our road and stuff. So where's the road back? I mean, what do we do? I do think my personal opinion is that I do think we're waking up. I do think that I do see a global wake-up call going on. Why? Because I see what's happening with Brexit. The idea of being governed by, an unelected officials in Brussels that are going to dictate 50% of how you do things in your country, it seems like a big erosion of the privacy. And so with Brexit, I think the big fear there is if they go ahead and they actually, when they were trying to stop the leave, because if they do, they realize the doom and gloom that they're preaching, it's not going to happen. They realize that they're going to go turn around and do trade deals with Canada, with the US, with Mexico, with South America. They'll do real trade deals. And what they're really doing is they're paving the way to destroy the European Union. That's just my take. It's all going away. You'll see Italy queuing up next. Italy's taking a huge hit. And even countries like France, Germany, now Germany's going to be footing the bill. They're going to be the financiers for the countries that don't have the money. I do think the world is waking up, and we're all a little bit tired of it. I don't care where you live. We're a little bit tired of getting, the thumb pushed down on you. You get up, I always say this, I get my fat, ugly ass up every single day. I shuffle off to an office. Sometimes I work remote. What am I doing this for? Where am I going? It's like, that's one of the things I love about digital assets is that it's the first time we can have a generational swing of wealth for the little guy. When I say the little guy, I'm talking us, everybody, the people that aren't in these high positions of, with the giant thumb, you know what I mean?
Right.
By the way, can you guys do that?
No, 90-degree thumb, I don't have it. That's a thumbs up right there.
It's weird, right?
I think I did it.
There you go. I think Carolina's there, man.
Mine doesn't work. That's all I got right there.
Wait, that's it?
That's
no,
it
you gotta do
there,
that.
Man.
That's
Jeff, what do you got?
That's bizarre. I know, straight
that's
up.
That's it too?
That's it.
Straight up.
Carolina's.
There's no
brothers from another mother right there, man. Right there. See?
There's anything like that.
Good for you,
All right. Hey, so Carolina, where do you think, where do you think with all of these erosions of freedoms and all of that, where do you think we're going now with cryptocurrency, with digital asset? How does that bring us back to center, to gaining our freedoms back. Is it possible, or are these central banks going to tap into it and the governments tap into it and control us even further?
Well, I'm hoping that with the blockchain technology that we will regain some type of privacy and freedoms back. But the government, it just has to have its hands in it. So it's just going to, I don't really know what to say on that, but I believe that the government will have their hands in the blockchain technology, but we should. I really don't know how to answer that, Jeff.
It's a tough question. It's a
tough
really tough
question,
question, and I don't know if any of us really know, what the outcome is. And the reason why I say that, and we talked about this before, is because we don't have to, here we're worried about the Patriot Act. We worry about some of the imposition on our freedoms here in the U.S. And then we look at China and we look at what their potential is. And we've talked about this before. What do you guys think about that? Freecoiner, you look at China and and it scares me a little bit, to see what they're going to do.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to as far as China, but the fact that they are their people have no freedoms for the most part. And then other things that are going on in China right now is just, man, it's crazy. It's unbelievable. Now, if these things are true, where they are taking certain faiths and imprisoning them with no cause, just because, you're of this faith, and we're going to take you and put you away for an undetermined amount of time, and nobody's able to do anything about that. To be honest with you, that's what we have in the Patriot Act. They can come and take you from your home on an accused. Just if somebody said that, hey, I saw this guy over here making pipe bombs, whether you were or not, they can come get you, take you away, and say you're a terrorist, and don't have to. I think they can hold you up to 2 years without charging you with anything. That's scary, man. I think where we are right now, like I mentioned before, is simply a result of people not wanting to take responsibility for what's happening. Nobody wants to do anything about it. I don't think people are ready to take their freedom. So many people are absolutely fine with, like Chip was saying, I think the phrase goes, those who are willing to trade liberty for freedom, or rather freedom for liberty, or no, which one is it? For safety. Their liberties for safety deserve neither. Something to that effect, right? Yeah. So that's where we are right now. And are people really ready to do what's necessary to gain that back? I don't think so. We're too fat and happy right now. We're applauding when thousands of people die when bombs are dropped on them, whether they're civilian or not. We're in the wrong mindset. Number one, I always say the most important thing on this planet, the best resource, bar none, the highest objective we should have is to protect human life. People. We are the most important thing, because without us, what does all this matter? Think about
there's AI, so there's always robots.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
I'll just say robots.
Robots, yeah, exactly. AI is, we're headed there too, man. It is, when I look at everything that's happening, it's funny. It's so funny because all of these things were foretold in many of the movies that we've seen since the freaking 40s, man. Look at Metropolis. It's crazy. And that movie was made back in the 30s. That's where we headed right now, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Thanks for cheering us up. I appreciate that. It's always fun.
I'm sorry, man. I'm just I'm a realist, dude.
No, I like that, man.
And I think that's why a lot of people have a hard time on my videos.
No, I think you're spot on though. It's like I have this buddy Bruce, and he always says, like, one of the best sayings he ever had, and it comes up on a daily basis. He said, everything's a good idea until somebody has to do something. Yeah. Okay, who's going to do that? It's like, oh, geez, look at the time. My God. Do I have to get going? You know, it's like everything is a good idea until someone has to do something. And what happened in Cuba, right? So we go like, when Castro's gone, well, then the other Castro brother took over. When he's gone, well, nothing happens, right? There's enough people to overthrow. But what I worry about is this whole socialism thing that crops up. These kids, they're coming up today, they're uneducated, they don't know what's going on. They believe in this utopia world. It's like, wait a minute, but they didn't know how to run it right. If we do central planning and we run it, then it's going to be perfect because we know how to do it better. But it hasn't worked. Doesn't matter. We've got the right plan. And the whole idea of being, you know, this whole socialism that's like cropping up everywhere. You know, you see elements and bits and pieces of it where people think this is a good thing. At the end of the day, it's a great thing. If you are that 1% elite, then you're always looking over your shoulder every 20 seconds for someone else that's willing to take you out to take your place. And it's good because you know you have just enough to keep you somewhat happy so you don't go do something. So, I mean, is this an issue in the world, this whole socialistic, you know, any of the isms, you know, communism, socialism? I somewhat worry about the fact that it's so easy to what we have now in the media is like we just start talking about stuff. Well, today something happened. Did that really happen? You can just say whatever, do whatever. I mean, the mass media, the social media, anything you say, and it's like, what's real and what's not? I think that's the hard thing. And you know, Freecoiner, you said this in the beginning. You know, I appreciate it when you shared your story because you said, you know, I didn't do any research, so I was just wildly going after this and that. And I think that everybody here can relate to that at some point in your life where we just went into something and then we went, whoa, wait a minute, what's the hell's going on? And you got to try to figure it out, right? You got to kind of go backwards. But I think you're right about the fact that you know, we do sometimes launch into stuff, and who does their own research? You're right, fat and happy, man. Come in, did my job, come home, do my thing, and you know, as long as you know, it'll be another day. You know, that's kind of how we look at stuff. I don't know where we go from here, Jeff. I don't know. I mean,
It's you know, yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, that's a whole separate topic to get into. We could spend hours talking about the whole, you know, impact of socialism and all of that. And I always go back to this book that I read, and you know, it's called Demophrenia, and it was all based on the schizophrenic nature of a democracy, and it's based on, you know, democracies and freedoms, and you know, we're willing to, you know, forego certain things, you know, and the democracies allow that to happen, and democracies seem to, you know, end up, you know, bending over backwards in order to make, you know, you know, things, you know, appear to be, you know, free when they really aren't, or you're going to jeopardize certain freedoms. I'm willing to give this up because of my future freedom. You know, I'm worried about the future, like you mentioned with the Castros. Oh, if we can only do this, if we can only do that, if we only give up a little bit, you know, we're okay if we give up a little bit with the Patriot, you know, the Patriot Act, because it's not a big deal because it's going to protect us just in case this ever happens again. We're going to know about it. But what about all the years that led up to it where we were okay? You know, I mean, there's our spontaneous events. You know, I mean, they're not because you know, history, you know, shows these guys have been out there for eons, you know, but we somehow survived it. You know, we somehow managed to make our way through 2 world wars, you know, major terrorist attacks, and, you know, and the one beacon of hope that this country brought is that we were the beacon of freedom, you know, and that's why we're able to win in World War II, you know, and you had these amazing people, you know, look at these kids that went over there and, you know, 16 years old, 17 years old, and joined up in the army to go overseas to fight, you know, because they understood what it took, you know, and they said, oh no, I'm 18. You know, how many kids now, 16 years old, would go into the military to go and fight and say, oh no, I'm 18. I want to go over there and fight because I want to protect the freedoms back here at home because I understand what fascism is. And I don't want fascism on the shores of this country. You know, and with this creep of socialism, they don't understand that what they're embracing is exactly what we fought, you know, all those years ago, or what our, you know, our grandparents fought, you know, and it's amazing, you know, it's mind boggling. But I see that, you know, we have this opportunity right now to maintain our vigilance over everything, you know, through blockchain, through digital asset, that investment, that ability to allow people to create their own wealth, I think is that beacon of hope. I don't care what country you're in, whether you're sitting in a small country over here in the Caribbean and Bermuda, whether you're over in Nigeria, whether you're over in Thailand, or you're in some, if you're in Wyoming here in the United States, you have all these smaller states, countries, governments that you would just not even expect that they're getting into this space, and that they're leaders in the economy now. And that to me is mind-boggling, but that also shows that there's the smaller entities that are reaching out for their own freedoms, regardless of what happens, right? I mean, do you guys kind of agree with that?
Oh yeah,
thought?
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I don't know. Well, I know we kind of we're coming up on an hour. We like to try to keep these to an hour. Just a final thought, and then we can go through some round of parting comments. But something I did want to bring up, we kind of attacked, the national governments, the central banks, all of that. But I think this is important because this is an interesting topic to end with. But it's the CEO of Coinbase, and he's looking at the 20s as a moment of or a time where we're going to see mass adoption. And one of the statements that he made was that he sees about 100 million newbies interacting with cryptocurrency, and he's going to say that that's going to be a huge wave of adoption that's incoming. Let's kind of end with that. What do you guys think about that? Is it going to happen imminently, or are we talking over the next decade, over the next 10 years, based on what we've seen?
Well, personally, I think what's going to happen. So considering everything that is going on right now, the way things are kind of being suppressed, and that's, with regulation and different prices, because, we all know that this supposed bull run that we've been waiting for should have already happened, right? I think, unfortunately, the powers that be have already co-opted, or they've taken control of crypto for the most part. Now, these new people are going to come in. I think the prices will definitely creep, and we'll see more adoption and all of that. But I don't think, I personally kind of feel we're not going to see the fulfillment of what is possible in this space until a number of years. It's really hard to say. I think we're going to see more growth this year than we have in the last 2 years. But I mean, it won't be anywhere near the potential that we could see. That's just, what I think there.
Yeah. What do you think, Carolina?
I think it's going to be a slow creep adoption. I don't think it's going to happen. Well, I do believe adoption is going to increase more this year than it has in the past, but I'm thinking it's going to be spread out throughout the decade. I did believe in the Shane Ellis theory that it could happen overnight, but based on this last year, 2019, I don't think that's going to be the case. But I could be wrong, but I'm hoping that it will be sort of like an overnight thing. But I honestly think it probably will be like in a slow adoption throughout this decade, the next couple of years.
Yeah. Now, do you think over that period of adoption, are we going to see the platforms like a Coinbase? Are they gauging? We're going to see more and more people interacting with the investment. Is it going to be the investment that's going to spike or lead to price increase, or is it a combination of investment and utility?
I do think it will be a combination of investment and utility, as of course as it becomes more and more what's the word I'm trying to say, as crypto or digital assets become more prominent, and people see the masses start seeing that this thing is definitely not going anywhere, and there is a potential to change lives with just an investment in it, that it's going to grow. It's going to definitely increase, and like the role of Coinbase and all that will probably be more prevalent, and that they would definitely people would definitely want to get in more, get involved with it as it rolls out to the masses, and the media covers it a little bit more, I believe.
I think that's a good point. The media. What do you think, Chip?
Yeah, I think, if we look back 5 years ago, right? 5 years ago seems like yesterday. Look back to 2015, right? I mean, yeah, it's 5 years ago, but realistically, I mean, you can remember what you were doing five years ago. It's almost seems in some ways like yesterday. If you look back 10 years, we hit 2010. It's like, oh, 2010, we're finally out of the 2000s. We're into that next decade. It seems like there's a lot of time that's passed, but you look back 10 years, we were talking a little bit before about 20 years ago. Remember 20 years ago, in 1999, turned the Y2K thing. If you think about that, so what is it really going to take? 5 years from now, I think we'll be in a better place. We're going to be in a better place, but there's so many variables. It's like when you look at code and you look at variables, there's so many variables in this particular one. You got the entire world, you have stuff, but I think the short answer is that we'll probably be in a better place. I never came in thinking it was going to be an overnight thing. Yeah, it's fun to speculate, 589, it's going to go to 1200. I don't think that matters as much. I think the reason we, all of us feel good about investing in XRP is because of the strong use case, because there's so much news. There's so much news coming out on a daily basis, and I think that the foundational stuff, when they put up the new Freedom Tower in New York, man, it took them a couple years just to work the foundation, right? The foundation has to be strong. So what we're looking at here is building something. We invested in this for a reason because of the use case. And I think, Brad Garlinghouse mentioned something really key where he said that, and he's been questioned on this. He said something to the effect of 99% of all cryptocurrencies aren't going to make it. And I think he's right about that. I think that you just can't spin up a coin and say, yay, and everybody gets excited and hyped. And then what's the point? I mean, Bitcoin's not going away. Bitcoin has already made its mark. Bitcoin paved the way. It's number one and it's first. It'll always have a big space, but who cares? I mean, if it takes 3 to 5 years, 10 years, I'm not necessarily, so sure that it really matters so much. I think some things have to happen. The regulations, to find out what ends up happening. The use case is going to be key. That's what I think is key about, Ripple and XRP. I mean, Ripple's the company out there. It's so funny. I mean, since 2012, we're 8 years in almost, right? And we still hear the same thing. It's a banker's coin. It doesn't, it's not decentralized. I bought into that coming off of Bitcoin myself. It's one of the reasons I wanted an XLM right away, because I was like, oh, it's decentralized. And the whole idea of, the company being centralized, but now it truly became decentralized when Ripple can't make, they don't control the, the nodes, the consensus. They can't make the change. So, I think that honestly, I think we're in a good place, man. I think going into 2020, there's a lot of good stuff to look for. The regulations will happen. We'll get there. We'll get there together. It'll be a good ride. Something Dansky always says in all the videos, enjoy the ride. I see him commenting on videos. Dansky's always the one that says, enjoy the ride. And I think we have to be a little bit less concerned about when, where, why, but just enjoy it. Enjoy the process, because, we only have now. We don't have yesterday. We don't have tomorrow. We have right now. And if we enjoy that process, I think we all get there together. But sometimes you can lose track of, getting involved in all this superfluous stuff around the edges. It's like, hey, man, we're in a good footing here. We're doing good things. And it's great that to hear all the voices in our community that are so vast and wild, and I just want to say, Freecoiner, a real pleasure having you on today, man. Really good to meet you finally after watching videos and stuff and having this conversation. We hope, that you enjoyed your time here, and certainly love to have you back, but man, I've really enjoyed,
Sure.
Hearing your point of view.
Hey, thank you, man. I really enjoyed being here, even though it was kind of early.
Next time it's going to be an hour earlier. No,
That's right. Yeah. We want to start. We start 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll
right.
get off.
That's when I normally get up anyway. So.
See, perfect.
Maybe not on the weekend.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to say too is I want to say that guys, if you're not familiar with Freecoiner, down below you'll be able to see the link to his channel. Please jump over there, you know, and subscribe if you're not subscribed, but get subscribed over there. If you enjoy it, and obviously we have XRP Carolina, a new contributor. He's going to be spinning up some content soon too. You can always go to onthechain.io. We're pushing people there because we're also on a new decentralized platform called Library, LBRY, and we're going to start expanding our universe of where we go out to, just because we don't want to live under the confines of the censorship and everything that could possibly happen. So we're expanding it out to other areas. And, you know, if you jump out there, but always go there. That way, you know, you can see the contributors, you can go link to their channels, go follow them on Twitter. We'll also have Freecoiner's Twitter, so go follow them on Twitter as well. We'll make it super easy for you. Click a link, you hit the follow, you hit the subscribe, and boom, you know, now you have another voice. If you're not following already, which I think probably a lot of you already are, but hey, you never know.
Yeah,
I'm on Library too, Library, or however you say it.
Library. I always thought it was Library.
Library. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
LBRY.
LBRY. Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like Liberty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's good too.
All right,
Yeah,
Jeff,
that's awesome. Hey, yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, we have the roundtable is every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. So you can always tune in next week. We bring in outstanding guests like Freecoiner and other content contributors like XRP Carolina. We rotate through. We love the engaging conversation. XRP Carolina, any parting words?
Just hodl. Just hold your XRP and hodl. It's going to be I think it's going to be a very interesting 2020. I do, and we just have to be patient and do what we've been doing for the past couple of years. Just be patient and hodl.
Be patient. Yeah, Freecoiner, any parting words?
Well, yeah. So, guys, again, thank you very much for having me on. All the folks out there, same thing. Hodl. Make sure you hold on, but also don't be afraid to diversify. There are a lot of other projects out there that are interesting. They have use cases. I'll give one, for example, that I got involved with. I sold and got back in, but is Casino Coin. You know, I started looking at what they have going on. And they have a use case, very good use case. They're already seeing some adoption, and they're built on the Ripple platform, the XRP platform. So, you know, you could do worse, you know, and what is this all about? It's about making money. Don't be afraid to make money. Don't be so tribalized mentally that you're only going to stick with one, you know, because that's a detriment. That's to your detriment. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Love those words. I think that's important. You got to learn from that, Chip. Any
I'm gonna try my best.
All right. Hey, with that, you know what? We look forward to seeing everybody next Sunday at 8 p.m. Remember to leave some comments below in this video and hit the subscribe on this video if you're new to this channel. You can always check out our other channel, On the Chain. I think, Chip, you brought that up, but onthechain.io, and we'll look forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, one
everybody.
thing, Jeff, let's jump into one more thing. By the way, you guys, what we're doing is we're putting the after show. Sometimes we're going to wind down here. We're going to talk for a few more minutes, and we're going to put that content that's going to be exclusive to Coil. So you'll jump over to Coil. Last week we had on Digital Nomad Investor and Oz Crypto. So that's going to be up there as well. So we're going to start doing more of that. We want to really support the Coil platform and what they're up to. So chip out.
Yeah. Chip out.
Chip out.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one. And we'll talk
next week.
Till next week.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.